Stop falling for the lie that there is a right answer. Unless you've got a little magical crystal ball that you haven't told me about yet, then you don't get to know the right answer. Nobody gets to know the right answer. The best thing you can do is commit to your decision enough to really give it a shot, to really be in the game. Hello, my beautiful friends. My name is Dr. Becc.
And I am Kristeen Barker, and this is Am I Doing It Wrong? A podcast for doctors by doctors. Dr. Becc is a mindset coach and medical doctor who specialises in liberating driven professional women from the limitations of perfectionism, imposter syndrome, and people pleasing. She's basically the cheat code for getting out of your own way, showing up authentically, and living a life you're proud of.
And Kristeen is a medical educator and nephrologist who creates resources for doctors in training that I truly think are an unfair advantage. She makes complex topics super simple and takes the pain and uncertainty out of passing your medical exams. Kristeen and I connected a few years ago via our online platforms, and over the years we've discussed countless highs, lows, and in-betweens of doctor life. And in doing so, we've experienced firsthand the power of vulnerable conversations to show us where we're getting in our own way and underestimating our capacity.
So we want you to be part of the conversation and experience these same results. Every week on the pod, we'll be bringing you conversations which shine light in dark places, normalise the doctor journey, ease unnecessary suffering, and give you actionable steps to thrive in all facets of your life. So grab a cuppa and get cozy for this week's episode of Am I Doing It Wrong? The podcast for doctors by doctors.
So hello everybody, we're so excited to bring you today's episode, which I think is deeply needed, and an episode that's going to save you a lot of suffering, and not only that, but build a lot of confidence. We have for you today some answers to what seem like impossible situations. All of the biggest, most important decisions in our lives are decisions that we make in uncertainty. With the tools, with the tricks that we're going to give you today, we can offer you confidence in uncertainty, strong in your reasoning and how you decide to narrow things down and choose when it comes to these big decisions. So let's talk about some of what these situations might be. So starting with work, I will throw out choosing a training program. We can think about picking a job as a consultant. Where are you going to work? And with that, are you going to continue to work in this place you are? Are you going to take a new opportunity? Are you going to take on a business position as a clinician as well? And even rewinding back, the decision to go to med school was also a decision that we made in uncertainty. Kristeen, can you give me a few from the rest of our lives as doctors outside of medicine?
Oh, it's so fun actually to think about this, because it's lovely to look back, and I'm sure for everyone listening, you can also look back on times in your life where you did make difficult decisions and you had no idea what was on the other side of that decision, and it was really hard, and then you had to make a decision in order to move forward. And I guess some of the ones that come to mind, like what you've said, yeah, definitely like picking a specialty, where you're going to work, where you're going to live. You know, obviously I moved country, like, whoa. We could unpack that. That was a mega uncertainty. I mean, even as the plane took off, I was looking out the window going, what am I doing? Like, literally it was taking off. I was like, what is this decision? Like, some of the decisions, even though they're good for you, they might not feel comfortable. So I love this. Other ones, I guess, that are really common, relationships, like choosing a partner, especially in this day and age where it feels like you've got so many options with the way we date on apps and things, whether you want to progress with your partner, move in with your partner, marry your partner, even, I guess, creative pursuits. Like if you want to express yourself in a different way, learn an instrument or fulfill a passion, that can feel really scary as well. You can feel really exposed. And whether to have children or not, I think is the other one that kind of comes up. But yeah, it's such a beautiful thing when I think about all of those like landmarks, milestones in my life. I look back really fondly on the decisions, but it's also so vivid in my memory, like how the uncertainty was palpable. Like it's like with these things, you almost feel like you're just jumping off a cliff. But I love that you're saying that there's actually a different way to arrive at these decisions where you mightn't feel like you're jumping off a cliff. So I'm fascinated for this conversation.
Well, I think this really comes with the doctor territory. I'm sure that you guys will completely relate to this. Again, it's something that we were really trained in for our clinical work that does not serve us when it comes to these big decisions. Actually, our clinical decisions at work, we could actually list as well. There's something that comes with uncertainty. Definitely. A lot of our clinical decisions, we don't get to know what the outcome is. And sometimes, I'm sorry, patients, you probably don't want to hear this, but medicine is very uncertain. Clinical medicine is uncertain. We actually make decisions with only partial information. We don't have the technology to identify exactly what's happening in our bodies in real time, but instead we infer what's happening based on whatever clinical signs and symptoms, and then the limited investigations that we do have. I'd encourage you, as you're listening to this episode and we give you these tips about how you can feel confident in these decisions, and also, like I said, maximize your opportunity to get the best outcome, just think about, for now with me, something that you'd like to apply this process to. Commit now to a decision in your life that you'd like to actually apply the work that we're talking about, and see if by the end of the episode, if you can create more clarity just by focusing and just by actually applying this to your life. I'm sure this will pay you back. So anything from a clinical decision that, maybe you've got a patient at the moment that's quite challenging, or if you've got one of those big life decisions. Do you want to have children? Do you want to get married? Do you want to go on that holiday? Do you want to take time off? Do you want to try a whole new career path? Do you want to change positions? Do you want to change specialties? Do you want to change into or increase or improve? No. Do you want to incorporate some more business into what's currently just a clinical life? What is a decision that you want to make some progress with today and feel more confident with today? So first, let's talk about the problem with how we currently approach these decisions that as I was saying, is exacerbated by the way that we are trained. As doctors, to be fair, as humans, we want to make the right decision. And the right decision to us means the decision that creates the outcome we want. But we need to recognize that these are two separate entities. There's the decision, and then there's the outcome. Making a decision, or whichever decision you choose, doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get the outcome. However, if you don't make the decision that makes that outcome possible or available, you're out of the game. So when we make decisions, we want to make a decision that creates the possibility of the outcome we want. But as people who want to make the right decision, we want to be careful to make sure we don't wrongly judge the decisions we make based on not getting the outcome exactly in the cute little bowed up package that we expected it in. For example, if you make a decision to take this specialty training pathway, and then a year down the track, you feel like you're behind. You feel like, or people are telling you it's very competitive, it's very unlikely that you'll get it. People are telling you that you're going to need to do a PhD, and so on and so on. And suddenly 1 year down the track, after making that decision, you're thinking, oh, maybe this was the wrong decision, because it looks like I'm not going to get the outcome I want. You see the difference in those two entities, the decision and the outcome. Do you have anything to add to this, Kristeen? I think this is a really important distinction that not many of us make. We sort of think the decision and the outcome are kind of a package deal.
It's such an interesting concept, because I guess that's the thing, is I don't think anyone's ever broken it down for me before. I've literally until this moment never thought about the process of making decisions. I feel like because I'm such an intuitive person, it's almost like I say, okay, we'll just trust your gut, and then, like I say, fall off the cliff and hope you land and you're still alive. But what you're saying, I loved, it was resonating so much when you were saying that without making the decision, you're not in the game. You have to make the decision to be in the game. And you're making the decision because you have a desired outcome that you believe is like the right outcome. Like, we're making for the right reasons, inverted commas, but there's no guarantees. And I think that's lovely, because there's also this kind of beautiful, as someone who does sort of like use my intuition as a guide, I often find that in life, and I'm sure that many people listening can relate to this, is that you make a decision because you think plan A. And then once you're inside that decision that you made, another door opens that you could never have thought of, or even if it doesn't go quite your way, the same thing's true. Another door opens and it's more magical, more beautiful than you ever thought it could be. And so but like you say, you have to make the decision to be in the game and then find out what's supposed to unfold for you. And I know that sometimes that rubs people up the wrong way as well. So I know that not everyone's going to resonate with, that there's something that was going to unfold and things happen by chance and all of that. But that would be my lived experience, I think, with this. Is that the same for you, Becc? Or how, I guess I'm so fascinated that you've broken down this concept of decision making. And I guess I imagine that's because it helps your clients. It helps when you're coaching, when people come to you and they're stuck with making a decision. So can you sort of, how did you arrive at this concept? And I guess how do we apply it?
Yeah, no, it did come from my clients. And it was this decision making that I saw over and over again. This is the value of having a coach, but also just talking out your reasoning, journaling, and watching your mind and seeing how you're making decisions. You'll be fascinated to see all of the thought errors that come up, and sometimes not even thought errors. Like you wouldn't be necessarily wrong to say, well, but the outcome isn't guaranteed. If I make this decision, then the outcome, I don't know that I'll get the outcome. But then we're looking at values. Is this a value that you want to follow? Is this reasoning that you like in terms of making this decision? So the pattern that I'd see come up over and over again is this hesitancy, this delaying of making decisions, taking massive, bold, courageous action, hidden under these, what sounds like responsible reasoning of, but I'm not sure if that's the right decision. I'm not sure if that will work. I'm not sure if I can make that happen. I'm not sure if that will create the outcome that I want. Making decisions that require certainty about the outcome. This is something that I think is incredibly disempowering, but is also incredibly common for doctors. Again, we've been trained over years and years and years to try and make the right decision meaning the one that creates the outcome we want. But that's not necessarily the reasoning that we want to apply to our whole life. Because if my clients are making decisions, are only allowing themselves to make decisions that have certain outcomes, they are not going to get what they want in life. Because my clients, by virtue of being in coaching, they want to grow and change. These aren't people who are happy to sit mediocre and settle. They're here examining themselves, knowing that they've got more potential to give to the world. So this is by necessity, this self-sabotaging decision-making process that we need to be able to overcome. And it's so uncomfortable. But when we do break down the decision versus the outcome, and then we look at the other benefits of making the decision that aren't just related to getting the outcome, then we can create a lot more confidence. And so that's really what we wanted to talk about today. I want to talk about reasons why you want to make these decisions, even if the outcome isn't guaranteed. We need to be able to move forwards in uncertainty and not just be riddled with fear the whole time, but have some confidence to help propel us forwards. This is going to be a life-changing concept for all of us, right, Kristeen?
Oh my goodness. And that word confidence, like we have, I don't know if I've done it on the pod, maybe a while ago, but certainly you and I have unpacked confidence before. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the definition that I've sort of absorbed or roughly translated is that confidence is basically having the willingness to be uncomfortable or even to fail and still have your own back. Like confidence is just that willingness to try, for one a bit of a word, and feeling safe in doing that. Have I butchered that? Is that your definition of confidence?
No, this is so good. So we think that the only way we can be confident is if we have total certainty in the outcome. It's one of the conditions we hold. And by the same token, we think that we can only make a decision if we have total certainty. And it's decoupling these things. Being able to have confidence, not be dependent on everything going perfectly and everything going exactly as planned and knowing exactly what's coming. But as you're saying, being able to have confidence at the same time as failing, or even anticipating failure, anticipating something going wrong. And the confidence comes from knowing you can have those things happen, and yet you will take care of yourself. You will make it good for yourself. You will not make it mean your defeat, and you will not make it mean, that you force yourself to lay down or give up. That is confidence, isn't it? Because a confidence that that you're going to get the outcome is just delusion. And to be honest, I'm a big fan of delusion. I use delusion in my life a lot because it serves me to believe that this thing is possible that I want, that's never happened before. That serves me. But delusion doesn't serve me when I'm thinking everything's going to go perfectly and nothing's going to go wrong and I'm not going to fail at all. That delusion doesn't serve me specifically because I don't actually believe it. My brain's like, I think I can see a few places here where we might stumble, if not fall on our face. And so if that's what I am choosing to believe is true about the world, which I do, I need to make that not mutually exclusive of my confidence. I need to be able to have confidence even when that happens. And that is something that I have, not that it necessarily comes naturally each time, but oh my goodness, I used to be so afraid of failing and stuffing it up, getting it wrong, saying the wrong thing. Even I remember in med school having my hand up to answer a question and like my heart beating in my chest, like, what if this is the wrong answer? Like even just getting a question wrong in a learning setting would make me feel anxious. And that, like, if I kept that mindset in my life, I would have stopped growing at that point. If it was that terrifying for me to get something wrong, if I let that continue to be the case, then I would have been exhausted and I wouldn't have had any energy to grow.
Yeah. And the kind of ironic thing about confidence as well is that I find that confidence comes with actually taking the step and actually doing the action, whatever it is that you're feeling lack of confidence about and the scary thing is happening. Like you get confidence by doing. So an example, it's a bit of a vulnerable share, but I think it's helpful is like, so obviously I'm a medical educator and last year I ran this written program and it was brand new and I hadn't heavily advertised it because I was running it for the first time ever. So I was actually really happy for small numbers. But I had about 20 people in the group right at the start. And I went to do the very first live event. And I thought if people had paid for it, maybe they would want to come. And when I went to do the live event, when I started talking, there was 2 people that came, but when I started talking, there was 1 person there on Zoom, and I was very grateful for that person. But I was slightly traumatized at the start of giving that because I had rehearsed to give it to a big group, right? I had rehearsed to like speak to lots of different people, and this thing was interactive. Like this thing was was meant for community. That's whatever I'd prepared. And it was funny because I realized in that moment, like, oh my God, I'm dying inside. I'm actually feeling embarrassed. I'm humiliated. I was having all these emotions come up because I felt like this was a massive failure. And I don't know how that person experienced it or anything. Like I said, I was so grateful they were there. But then after that experience, I felt unstoppable. Like after having that experience, I feel like I go to something, if I've got 1 person there, I'm okay. Like that's fine, someone to talk to. Like even if there's no one there, I'll probably just speak to no one and I'll record it and I'll do something else with it. But it's just such an example of, that might have been my worst fear. Like as in, what if no one comes? Then there's not a reason not to do it and show up. And even if 1 or no people come, there's a confidence that comes from that because you survived that, you did that, you processed it, and then the next time you see that scenario, you don't need it to validate you because you've kind of moved through it. So I guess, yeah, can you think of any examples in your life like that? Would you say that is the way that confidence is built, is just by doing and failing, maybe?
Firstly, I would say yes. I think anybody who has worked online and had to do their own marketing and so on has experienced that situation, if not that fear. I actually can't remember anymore. I actually hosted an in-person workshop in my first year of coaching at a local gym, and we hosted two of them. And to one of them, I can't remember if no one showed up or if one person showed up. I don't know why. Maybe I blacked this out because I understand how much of a fear this is. And it's only because of all those thoughts that come into your mind about what it means. Because truly, like, I know that when we get into our most integral selves, we're like, oh my gosh, I'm so honored that this one person came. And it doesn't matter how many people came. But when you're not prepared for that, all these thoughts can come into your head, just like any time that you fail. So this is really relevant to what we're talking about. The reason that failing feels so bad is because of what we make it mean. The reason that it feels so bad to have only one or no people show up to something that you offer is because you think that that means, or your brain makes it mean, this isn't valuable, people don't want this, I don't have anything to offer, all those worries. And there's another set of worries. It's like, oh, maybe everything I thought about life and everything that I understood was wrong because I thought this was a good idea and clearly it wasn't. So all those thoughts that come up is one thing. And when you do the scary thing and you let all those thoughts come up, you can very quickly see, sometimes not quickly to be fair, but you get the opportunity to see all those thoughts that created that feeling that you were so afraid of. And then you get to be like, oh, that thought's not true. Oh, that's actually not what I believe. Oh, that doesn't actually make any sense. So you actually get the opportunity to debunk all those things that were creating that fear, or all the reasons why you wanted to avoid that situation ever happening. That's one thing you get. And that's one reason why you can create more confidence, ironically, by being in this, quote, terrible situation, because you get to clean up all those errors in thinking. But then the other thing is you actually get an opportunity to finally tap into that emotional experience that we work so hard to avoid. We work so hard to avoid feeling like a failure. And when you have the experience of failure come over you in an voluntary or involuntary way, then, as you said, you survive that experience that other people spend their whole lives dancing around and avoiding. But when you go through that experience, this process happens depending on how you treat yourself, where you change your relationship with that emotional experience that you're avoiding. You change your emotional experience with shame, with embarrassment, with fear as well, because you're fearing the shame and embarrassment. And that change in relationship to be a less avoidant relationship and a more resilient relationship then poises you for the next situation. And suddenly we're so much less fragile. So I think that's the way that I see going through these experiences and actually failing, or even just being willing to put yourself in a situation where you could fail and therefore feeling all that fear and hesitation. It truly does make you more confident. It's not some ironic, paradoxical thing. It's very logical, actually, how this happens when you look into it. So, yes, I unfortunately, for better or worse, plan to have as many failure experiences over the next few years as I can, for two reasons. One, to maximize my outcomes, but two, because I just want to keep bringing up all those errors in my thinking that are holding me back. And I want to keep improving my relationship with these emotions that any human would want to avoid, because it allows me to do whatever I want in the world. And actually, that flows on really nicely to our first confidence builder in terms of making decisions in uncertainty. And the first kind of guiding principle that we want to offer you when you're in a position to make a decision in uncertainty. And firstly, congratulations for trying to make a decision. We can just spin and spin and spin and spin with all these responsible sounding reasons about how it's not the right time, we need to do more research, on these decisions. Oh, I just thought of another one that you mentioned before, buying a house, right? In this uncertain economy. We can spin on these decisions. And if you're in a position where you're ready to make a decision, then bravo, because you're putting yourself in that position to, quote, fail based on most of our reasoning systems for making decisions. So the first thing we wanted to offer you was when you're making a decision in uncertainty, and usually we make a decision based on, well, I'm going to make this decision because I'm going to get this outcome out of it. But as we're saying, we're uncertain. We don't know if you can get this outcome. And along the way, after you've made a decision, you can get all this quote evidence to look like you're on track. Like plan A is not working out. The timeline is not unfolding exactly as I planned. And I'm starting to think I'm not on track. But the first thing we want to offer is when you make a decision in uncertainty, you don't try and make the right decision. You make a decision and then you make it right. I didn't come up with this term. This is something that I've heard passed it around in so many circles, so I couldn't tell you who the main source is, but this is just fundamental in terms of creating the best outcomes in your life, because the decision is not usually a direct make a decision and then the outcome emerges or doesn't emerge. But instead, the decision is made and there's usually a path that needs to be followed. There are steps that need to be taken and more like micro decisions along the way to be made. And when you make a decision without knowing that you're going to get the outcome, but you decide to make it right, so you decide to be committed to making more great decisions that stay aligned with that original decision, you therefore maximize your chances at getting that ultimate outcome that you wanted. This is very different to making a decision and then kind of letting yourself float and bounce through the path thereafter, continuing to question and doubt, was it the right decision or not? Looking for signs, was it right or wrong? Versus I've made the decision, I'm going to maximize my opportunity to get the outcome here. And therefore, at every turn, with every sign, I'm going to come back to, this is my decision. This is the outcome I'm going for. What can I do? What is the next right step for me here in this position to get to that outcome? Make a decision and then make it right. You don't need to just make the right decision in the first place. I know you use this one in your life, Kristeen.
Oh, 100%. But when you were describing that, I was thinking it sounded like a GPS system of some sort. Like you've programmed it and you're like, right, this is where I'm headed. And even if you take a left somewhere you weren't supposed to take a left, you're like, well, okay, now I'm going to reroute and I'm going to have this lovely, I don't know, we'll go past the beach on the way and we'll like, yeah. But can we unpack that a little bit more? So are you saying making a decision, the right decision, does that mean that you're saying that, I guess I just want to make sure it's clear in my mind and for everyone listening, because I feel like making that right decision, it's not entirely clear to me how we would know the difference. Like how do we know we're on track? I don't know. Like you're saying don't look around for signs and stuff, but equally I'm sort of thinking, how do you make it right? Is it a cognitive bias thing? Is it a confirmation bias thing? Like what is it? What's going on?
Yeah. And so I think we'll speak to when things don't go right in our second point. But in this first point, it's really about committing to the decision. And then, basically not basically, but also with that, using things like confirmation bias. You know, the benefit of when you have chosen a path, you've chosen a way forwards. And because you are committed to that outcome, obstacles come up, things go wrong, that would usually throw other people off. But because you've committed to that outcome, you will just climb over the obstacle. When things go wrong, you'll be like, okay, not today, but maybe tomorrow. And that's really what make a decision and make it right is. It's you don't make the right decision that just natural, and then you don't make the decision and then the outcome will just emerge. But you make the decision, you decide the outcome you want, and then you make it happen. You make it happen with all the things that you do. So this one's really about fierce commitment. And of course, there is room to, also depending on your value set and depending on your limitations, everybody needs limitations and boundaries. I'm not saying to charge at this outcome relentlessly for the rest of your life and let it override all your other values. But if you really want to give that outcome a shot, then you don't have room to let the doubt and the obstacles that will come up on what is an uncertain path. You don't have the room, the space, the time, the energy to let an obstacle come up and then have that affect you in the way that you're like, maybe this wasn't the right decision. But when that obstacle comes up, you're like, well, I know I'm getting to the destination anyway. So how am I getting around the obstacle? Very different mindset there.
I love that. Oh my goodness. So you're going to make it the right decision by fierce commitment and climbing over the obstacle. I love that. All right. What's number 2?
So number 2 is kind of the opposite in a way. And I actually use both of these at once, especially because I don't want to deny, guys, I'm a big fan of make the decision and make it right. I'm doing that in my life. I do it in my life in so many ways where I don't have the outcome I want yet, but I am continuing as if I'm going to get the outcome. I'm staying committed to the outcome. And the other thing is, what my brain knows is true is that that outcome is not guaranteed. And if my mind was to think, on the days where it's really hard, well, the outcome isn't guaranteed, I'm doing this all potentially for nothing, I would fall down in a heap. It's not enough for me if I'm totally attached to the outcome. So this other part of making decisions, being confident in the decisions you make, is also recognizing, what do I get out of this if I don't actually get the outcome at the end? What am I getting out of this pursuit? And is that enough for me if I don't actually achieve the outcome? Think of these Olympians right now. They're all probably dreaming for a medal. Some of them, very reasonably enough, getting to the Olympics might be like, tick, I am done for life. More than most of us could hope for. But for some of them, for many of them, it might be a medal. It might be a gold medal. And also, I don't know if you've been watching the devastating performances, but so much is out of your control, even in a 50-meter swimming race, even in a 90-second boxing match, even in one, trick that I would think that these skaters have done a million times in their life on probably very similar paths, very similar skate rink setups. I should really try and talk about something that I actually understand. But, I think about it often when I watch the basketballers do again, I should talk about things I know, the foul shot, where they're standing on that line, they're standing right in the center of the court. They've done that shot a million times and still they miss it, even with all those variables isolated. And just a little quick pump here for mindset coaching. That's because your mind is always a variable here. But, if for these Olympians, the gold medal outcome was the only thing that made it worth it, then how devastating would it be? And what would they think about the decades often of training that they've dedicated to this pursuit when they hit their first, second, or third Olympics and they don't get that medal? Where does that leave them? After dedicating all of their adult life so far and, the years where other people are, quote, getting ahead and getting into jobs and where does that leave somebody? How devastating is that when we put all of our value in what we've done on getting that one particular end outcome, particularly when so much of it is out of our control? And I've seen some devastating, heart-wrenching examples from some Australians where it was quite clear that at least in that moment, their minds were really telling them, because I'm out, I don't know if I'm going to be okay. Now, this is very different to when you're able to see the pursuit being valuable in itself. So for every single one of my goals right now, I know that even if I don't, even if somebody was to tell me right now, you're not going to achieve that goal, I would still be delighted with all of the effort that I put in so far. And I would probably continue on the pursuit actually anyway. I would maybe set a different goal if somebody could magically tell me that I wasn't going to achieve that particular goal. Because I also know that I'm getting so much out of, and I love what I'm getting out of the pursuit. I love the person that I'm becoming. I love the way that I'm changing. I love the ways that I'm challenged. I love the fact that I had to become the person who, like you, Kristeen, could have one person show up to a workshop, something that you offered, something that you poured your heart and soul into, and something that you were like, I know this is going to help people, and bounce back from that. An earlier version of me wouldn't have. An earlier version of me would have been like, well, this mustn't be for me. I mustn't have anything to offer. I'm going to stop doing this and pick something else, But I love that I become on the pursuit, even without the outcome. I become the kind of person who is more resilient, more resourceful, and also contributes more to the world even before I achieve my outcome. So that's really what this second one is about. And I don't know if I've heard this question anywhere else posed this way, but we talk about the journey being as important, but I want you to think about it as important in terms of really tangibly think about what you're getting out of going on the journey. If you weren't going to get the outcome, if somebody was able to predict the future and tell you weren't going to get the outcome, what are you getting out of the journey? What are you getting out of the pursuit? Would the pursuit still be worth it for who you become and what you contribute and what you achieve in the process? Because for me, that gives me supreme confidence to keep doing what I'm doing, because it makes me realize that while the outcome A, the ideal outcome, is highly motivating, that's not a deal breaker for me if I don't get that specific outcome. So how does that one resonate with you, Kristeen?
So much. I was actually just going to say in this sort of part two about like being okay with not getting the outcome for all the other reasons. And you mentioned the journey and the person you become on the journey, as well as the experience of the journey, the lessons learned. Yeah, it's a whole thing, the journey. And then the only other thing that came up for me in that part was the why, which is kind of part of your journey. But I feel like they're kind of separate things. Like the journey is a process, and you will change in the process, and you will grow in ways that you can't even imagine in that journey. And that's, that's what the magic is, as opposed to the destination. But then the why behind it, I feel like, is the thing that keeps you showing up when things are hard. Like you say, I've got goals as well that if you said to me I wasn't going to achieve them, I would still just continue, because I don't know how to be any other way because of my why. Like the reason that I have that goal, it's not really almost, and I'm sure a lot of people have this sort of goal as well. It's not really about me. It's not really like it's about putting things out into the world or having an impact or something like that. I mean, that might not apply to everything, but maybe it does, because even in more personal things, if someone said, oh, your relationship's not going to work out, are you really going to marry this person? I think a lot of people would say yes, actually do want to marry this person, because right now in this moment I want to do that. They're completely true for all of those very personal things, but all of the work things as well. I love it. I love it so like this, like all the best things in the world. When you unpack it like this and you can see it all laid out, it's just a beautiful deconstruction of something that is untouchable. Like decision making feels like one of those intangible, I don't know, but when you've broken it down like this and given us all of the compartments to it, so there's the decision to be in the game, and then there's the hopeful outcome, but not being attached to the outcome, have enough confidence to work towards that outcome and knowing that you're going to be okay. Meanwhile, set your GPS and your fierce commitment, like you say, to go after the goal. That is your primary focus, is your plan A, but also understanding that there is this journey, there is this why, there's another reason to be in the game, and you're going to gain something. It's almost like you cannot fail. You cannot lose in this situation.
I think that's probably the message, isn't it? You get confidence when you actually realize you can't fail, because now you've redefined failure. We started with, defining a good decision by what's the right decision, meaning what's the decision that's going to guarantee the outcome. Doesn't exist. Like, you might get lucky, but that's all it is. You got lucky if that's the system that you're using, if you're just trying to sit back and calculate what the right decision is. But if you pick a decision and you make it right, then you are going to feel the clarity and the confidence that comes with, I'm going to work out whatever comes, whatever obstacle comes up. If you can make that commitment to yourself, you're going to get the confidence that comes from that, and all of the side effect confidence from figuring out all the things along the way, becoming the kind of person who just figures it out. So you don't need to know the right answer to feel confident, but you just make a decision, then you make it the right answer by keeping on going and working things out. And then, so that's one thing, guys. Don't with your decision today, stop falling for the lie that there is a right answer. Unless you've got a little magical crystal ball that you haven't told me about yet, I'm very unhappy with you about that fact, because I really need that in my life and in my business. Then you don't get to know the right answer. Nobody gets to know the right answer. The best thing you can do is commit to your decision enough to really give it a shot, to really be in the game. And then the other thing is, what will give you the most confidence is if you put failure on the table, if you're not attached to the outcome and you still recognize that you're a winner. Imagine if you could make a decision, it didn't work out, but you've made a decision based not just on the outcome, but based on the pursuit, based on who you become, as Kristeen's saying, because it's so valuable to you to just go on that journey and build those new skills, become that new person, be faced with those challenges, fall down, get back up, fall down, get back up. If that pursuit is giving you back enough, then you know you've made a good decision. You've made the right decision, because those things are in your control. The outcome, not necessarily, but those things are. And you've won whether or not that uncertain thing happens or not. So it is a different way to make decisions. I think we're not given enough decision tools, and we all get highly analytical. And in some ways, I've got to say, I think it's just a big waste of time, because again, we would need to be able to predict the future. And nobody was able to predict, the pandemic. Actually, there were some movies that seemingly predicted the pandemic coming. But, my mortgage broker told me to not fix my loans. He was an expert because he thought the interest rates wouldn't get any worse and so on, So I think once we accept, which we don't want to as doctors, once we accept the uncertainty in the greater world and also in our clinical practice, then we can start making decisions that actually from confidence, but then also we get to pursue that decision with confidence, which I think makes us better operators of our brains as well.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. And I think the other thing to say is that you can always change your mind, even though you program the GPS. Like once you roll the dice, you do the decision, you start to move forward with it, you will get more data and you might make another decision, and that's okay. Like I love being able to change my mind. It's good.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, that's such a great point, because I don't want you guys to use that first point against yourselves. I definitely in the past, I've used that against myself. Like, be a quitter. Being a quitter is sometimes the best thing ever. If you're willing to invest, and then when you get more data, you're like, oh, wait a second, this is not right for me. I'm just going to leave that sunk cost plus or minus whatever you've gained in the pursuit. Then I think that's a total win. And make a decision and make it right only applies as long as you don't get more information that shows that you want to make a different decision. But very different making a values-based change in decision from making one that is because you're starting to think, oh, it looks like I'm not going to achieve the outcome. Oh, it looks like I'm not on track. So that's probably the distinction there. Are you making a values-based decision, or are you making a decision there to go off that track because of fear and doubt?
Yeah, I really hope this helps everyone listening with all of your big decisions. If you do have a big decision and this has helped you, please feel free to drop it in the comments below. We would love to hear from you. And if there's anything you want to hear us talk about on the pod, of course, suggestions are always welcome. We love you guys. Thank you for being here. And we'll see you again next week. Bye.
I've been waiting all my life for something. darkest roads and up in the clouds. But I've always felt that something's missing.